as my talented co-host would like to say, we're getting after it on the latest edition of your daily source for fantasy hockey news, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Coming in hot with the top news from around the NHL and some fantasy takes. Are the Devils the best squad in the East? What's going on with the Leafs? And Shane Pinto's injury update. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, my fantasy fanatics? Welcome back inside the lab to your daily source for fantasy hockey and betting breakdowns, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Joined, as always, by my distinguished co-host, Mr. Steel Roden, on this side of the microphone. It's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. You know what it is. Shout out to the everydayers. Thank you so much. Salute and much love for holding us down and making us your first listen every single day. Steele and I are here Monday through Friday, all the way until the cup gets lifted, even a few Saturday specials mixed in as well. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, start the NFL season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with 150 bones in bonus bets if you win your first $5 wager. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Mr. Roden, good to have you back. Been a little bit of a spotty week and a half for your boy, so much love to you for holding me down. I'm ready to go here. I've got my finger on the pulse. You know, saying getting after it. I like to say finger on the pulse. We're going to get those plugs out of the way early. Devils, Leafs, Sens, Tuesday's bets. Let's start in the Metro with these Devils. Who are you looking at for this come up? Why? Who? Whatever. Take it away. Devils time, baby.
Devils time. We're doing an Eastern Conference episode here.
True.
With all of those Eastern Conference teams that you just listed off. But yeah, the question: New Jersey Devils, are they the best team in the Eastern Conference? The answer is no. The answer is flat out no. They're not the best team in the NHL. They're not. The
I had to
best
throw
team
it
in
out
the
there.
Conference. They're not even the best team in their own division. I would way prefer the New York Rangers right now. I actually prefer the Washington Capitals over them. The Carolina Hurricanes.
Whoa.
And yeah, they're not the best team right now. They've played the most amount of games. They've played 12 games so far to start off this season, and they're 6-4-2. And while you love to see the depth scoring from their guys right now. Excuse me. I got a frog in my throat right now to start off this episode.
Take your time, pal. We got 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, you love to see the depth scoring from their guys right now. Eric Haula, 8 points. Paul Carter, 8 points. Wow, this is brutal to start off this episode. I'm going to throw it back over to you because this is brutal right now to start off with a frog in my throat, start off this episode. But yeah, they're not the best team in the Eastern Conference. They're not the best team in their division. You like to see the depth scoring, but surprise, surprise, they're having some trouble in the blue paint once again.
That is an interesting frog that you have in your throat. I appreciate how you're going to look at that. If you want to edit it, I say we leave it in and go raw dog on it. However, I just had to come on here and bring up the New Jersey Devils because it was obviously a team that headed into this season. A lot of people were looking at Dougie Hamilton back, Pesce added on the blue line, Luke Hughes stepping in. They bring in Brendan Dillon. They get tougher. They get nastier. The additions in the blue paint. And look, up front, things are going seamlessly. 44 goals scored for this New Jersey Devils team. That's tops in the NHL. Yes, they do have 12 games played, also tops in the NHL by quite some margin, at least 2 on the next closest team. So I just wanted to point out in terms of fantasy value for offense, and yeah, the Nasons of the world, Paul Cotters, they might not exactly be there all year long in terms of what they're doing right now, but I think for now, you definitely have to pay attention fantasy-wise to these offensive pieces while they're cooking. You made good points about the New York Rangers. I still give the crown in the East to them, most definitely. They're looking nasty to start the year as well. However, even with the more games played, they are tops of the Eastern Conference table, so I wanted to come on here and talk about a few of their fantasy pieces, talk about Nico Hischier as well. So take it how you want it here, but Nico Hischier leads the league with 9 goals, and this is a player that came out of a really bad draft year, Steele, as the first overall pick, but I got my eye on him. I got my eye on Dawson Mercer on that top wing, and I think This team is definitely good enough to get into the playoffs and make some noise. I just don't know if they're good enough to take out a team like the New York Rangers or even Florida Panthers.
Yeah, I mean, this is a this is a very good team right now. I'm battling through. We're gonna continue. We're gonna try to power through this right now, but they've had some
You
really
got
good
this.
success so far this season. Before we get to Nico Hischier, I mean, just to go back, I mean, they were on a 4-game losing streak: Washington Capitals, Tampa Bay Lightning, Detroit Red Wings, and and the New York Islanders. Wow, this is a brutal episode so far for
You're
myself.
good.
Sorry
You're
about that,
good.
everybody. Um, but yeah, Nico Hischier, he's been fantastic so far this season. He's a very smart player.
Yeah.
It's great to see him have this success early on, especially in the goal department. And it's, he's always in the conversation, or he has been in the conversation the last 3 years in the Selke Trophy race. And that translates and transitions into him having success in the offensive zone. When you're smart in your own zone, it transfers over to the offensive production. He always seems to be on the right side of the puck, helping retrieve pucks, digging in those corners, quick transitions, and finding those open lanes for those high danger scoring opportunities. And that's what we get into is he leads the NHL in high danger goals right now at 4.72%. He's over 50% in Corsi 4 right now. And it just shows why he's had such a great start to the season for these New Jersey Devils, and really showcasing that goal scoring ability that he hasn't been able to do in the past. Yeah, he's been able to have some really great production, but he's been mostly a playmaker for the New Jersey Devils. So it's great to see him be there, especially for fantasy hockey. His ADP was 78.9. So he was getting drafted in the late 7th round, early 8th round right now. He is outperforming his ADP by a mile. He's currently ranked 7th in Yahoo Fantasy. So it's just great to see him have this success early on in the season for the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think as a number 1 draft pick, even though that was a soft draft, Nolan Patrick going second in that one, get yourself a little H2O, get yourself a little agua. I'll carry this one for us. I just wanted to say this. Nico Hischier also 4 goals on the power play. That has to be noted. And when you take a look at just the overall balance of the offense, we're going to have the work in progress in the cage. I think we'll get there. Jesper Bratt, 12 points. Nico Hischier, 12 points. Stefan Nason, 11. Timo Meier, 11. Jack Hughes, 10. And then a whole bunch of other guys kind of mixing it up and contributing offensively. When that happens, then you're going to have some success. Yes, it's early in the season. And yes, I would still agree with you that the New York Rangers take the cake in the East for obvious reasons. But I got my eyes double peeled, double circled on this New Jersey Devils team. I want to talk about Shane Pinto. I want to get to Tuesday's bets. Let's get to the Leafs right after the break very quickly. It'll give you a chance to get a few more waters into you, fix up this cam. It's a rough ride for my boy early on. This is what happens when you go on a weekend heater. You come back a little rough around the edges. Let's get to it, though. If you're a good steal, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel's America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $5 and $150 in bonus bets if that $5 wager wins. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. When you get that hunch in the middle of the game, like maybe you did Monday night for the Pittsburgh Steelers, check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place those bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 wager wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Today's episode is also brought to you by Gametime, my friends. Steele and I love using the Gametime app for all of the local events in our area: comedy, theater, sports, music, and more. Make sure you're checking out Gametime. Take the guessing out of your next ticket buying experience with FanDuel. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account and redeem code. I'll get it right this time. LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. What time is it? Game time.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Apologies for what's going on with myself right now. I mean, Right, I was fine, completely fine to start off this episode right when we got going.
You got to lay off those
Logging the
darts,
throw.
bud. Smoking a few too
maybe
many darts, I think.
I've never smoked a dart in my life. I don't know what the heck's going on right now. This is just absolutely brutal, but apologies for that, everyone who's tuning into this episode. We got the camera fixed back up. It's
Hey-o.
back and clear for everybody on YouTube, but the throat, that still remains to be not clear right now. But Jake McCabe, let's get into some of the Toronto Maple Leafs. New contract for him, 5 years, $22.55 million for the 31-year-old defenseman. Over to you, my friend. Where do you want to start off? Do you want to start off with Jake McCabe or maybe some other pieces that are not looking so right for the Maple Leafs?
Yeah, I think obviously the big news is the extension for a very important piece to this Toronto blue line and core of the franchise. 5 years, $22.55 million. Starts next season, annual AAV of $4.51 million. Very, fair deal, I think, for the value of this player. Yeah, he doesn't jump out in the fantasy realm per se, Steele, but he is a guy with 3 assists this year, 8 penalty minutes, playing over 21 minutes of ice time per night, who obviously likes to mix it up. He's still valuable in the fantasy game, and in deeper leagues, he is almost one of those guys that you kind of need to balance out your squad, especially on the blue line. So that needs to be mentioned, and I want to just kind of hit you with my take of this team so far. And I know we try and do our best to stay away from just overly talking about the Leafs because of where our allegiances lie, where we live, and all of that. That game against the Bruins on Saturday was one of the more frustrating 60-plus minutes of hockey that I've seen in a while from this team. I'm not coming on here to say the sky is falling. I'm not coming on here to throw hate at players. Not even close. They're still going to be a good team, and there's growing pains, right? Lots of new players, new coaches. It's going to take time. However, Austin Matthews, I know Mitch broke his stick. I know that's one of those caveats in hockey. We're not on the ice. He's got to tighten it up for me, Steele, at both ends of the ice, because what's really impressed me with him over the last year and a half is he's been just as committed to his offensive game to his defensive. And right now, I don't know if it's because he's got the C. I don't know because if it's Craig Berube in there. I don't know what it is. But he seems to not be stringing it together in his 200-foot game. He looks a little out of sync. He's still scoring goals, so I'm not trying to jump all down his throat, and it's still early. I'll leave it at this. Frustrating game. They're going to have to tighten it up across the board if you want to beat teams like the Boston Bruins, especially come April. Don't get me started there. Matthews has to tighten it up as well. I like the signing, but they have to play better. Starting against the hottest team in the NHL. We don't know what's going down Monday yet because we're recording early. Let's see how that works out.
Yeah, I mean, that was by far the most brutal giveaway I've ever seen
it's brutal.
from Austin Matthews. It was terrible. I mean, it was just a soft little pass off the boards. No help whatsoever. I don't know what he was thinking, but it was brutal giveaway. It was lazy play from him.
Yes.
And then just trying to get back in that situation as well. I mean, he was just caught flat-footed. He left Stolarz out to dry, and it was a bad, frustrating, like you said, 60-plus minutes for the Maple Leafs. It's been a very frustrating last 3 games for Maple Leafs fans, but like you said, the sky's not falling. They played probably the best hockey I've seen them play to start October in their first 5 contests this season. And then the last 3 games just completely have fallen apart with the game plan that Berube has given them so far this season. Real quickly, Jake McCabe, I love this contract. More than deserved. I think a lot of people look at this, and because it's the Maple Leafs, they're just going to hate on it. They're, the overall expectation is to dog on it, and because it's the Maple Leafs. Yeah, it's very dumb for do that, but it's a great deal. And when you look at the core of this blue line for the Maple Leafs, yeah, they're definitely on the older side of what you would like to see. Morgan Riley, 30 years old, Tanev, 35, Larson, 33, Jake McCabe, 31. But all those guys are now solidified. And they're, they're solidified with the Maple Leafs blue line for at least the next 4 years. Minimum. That's being Oliver Ekman-Larsson. You've got Riley, Tanev, and now McCabe locked in until the 2029-30 season. So this is the perfect opportunity the next 3 to 4 years. This is where they're going to be all in. This is all in for them now because they've solidified those top 4 guys as their blue line for the foreseeable future. On top of that, there's a few guys that obviously you're going to have to clear some cap space. You're going to have to make some room, some adjustments, especially when it comes to the trade deadline in March.
Of course.
I don't know about you, but I have not been a fan of Robertson whatsoever this season. Obviously preseason was a different story. He showcased his goal scoring ability, but just the overall play of this guy right now, it's not something that I see having genuine success in this organization. I truly believe if he wants to have success at an NHL level, he's going to have to go somewhere else, start somewhere fresh with a new franchise. And just right now, his overall play is just not up to the standard that I think the Leafs are looking for right now. He looks very sloppy out there. His stick handling looks atrocious. He can't keep the puck on net, or he can't get the puck on net. He continues to miss by wide margins right now, making some really bonehead moves and plays at the defensive blue line. I just had to put that out there. I'm not a fan of Robertson. I know there's been some trade rumors with, obviously Robertson and Timothy Liljegren. I think those are guys that are potentially going to be moved at the trade deadline or beforehand to make some cap space and some mobility for this organization moving forward. But that was just me. I don't know if you want to comment on that for Robertson, or we can move forward to Shane Pinto.
Yeah, let's move forward. I guess, I say let's move forward, and then I still want to say 18 things about this team because that's just how fired up they get me. This is a classic case of this team, right? Fantasy-wise, Matthews, Nylander, Marner, they're rolling offensively, basically. Yeah, like you could maybe expect a little bit more out of Austin because he started somewhat slowly. But for the most part, those top three studs that you went after, you're getting what you need to get. It's just about this team putting it all together. And I hate to just pick on bottom sixers, but I think Robertson out of the mix and a guy like Connor Dewar back in the mix. Again, not going to say like a guy who's going to play 10 or 11 minutes of ice time a night is going to turn around a team. I loved that Connor Dewar addition by Treliving. And I think when you get him back, maybe you get a little bit more confidence in that top six forward group, because let's be honest, the power play has been absolutely horrendous. They're near the bottom of the barrel still. Only the Capitals, Ducks, and Sabres have been worse on the power play this year. And those three teams have been bad on the power play. So once that confidence starts to come back into the top six forward group, Dewar is traveling with the team. He's going to be matted back. He can skate. He can throw the body. He's a prototypical Craig Berube player. So we haven't seen the best of this Leafs team yet. Wanted to come on and talk about McCabe, some of their fantasy pieces. I appreciate Robertson. Let's get to another Atlantic Division team right now, quick, before we get to break. We'll wrap it up with bets, of course, trying to keep this heater rolling. Mr. Roden, you're doing pretty well yourself with those picks. Shane Pinto is a shooter. Shane Pinto is an important piece for this Ottawa Senators club that I don't know what your take is on this team, Steele, and I've done a little bit of digging and a little too much watching for a team that and a fan base that fires me up. They've been sloppy on the blue line, really sloppy. And you got performances out here from like Giroux, Kachuk, and Batherson who have been killing it. Even Josh Norris looking pretty good. And then you have to go out there and rely on a guy in Travis Hamonic to eat the minutes that he has to right now. That's a problem. For me, there's still a mess on the back end, and I don't know what to say about a team that you and I have stood by so much that are underperforming again. But Shane Pinto's absence, definitely not helping things.
Yeah, I mean, just real quick, they just make their goaltenders look bad. And once again, that's the case. I mean, they haven't been getting great goaltending from Forsberg and Allmark as well, who's, again, injuries concerned. Once again on a year-to-year basis with whoever's in the crease, but that's obviously been a key factor to their lack of success so far this season. But they also just make their goaltenders look bad. And as great as Jake Sanderson has been offensively, he's got one goal and 8 points. He's -5 on the season. He's been pretty sloppy and making some really bad plays in the defensive zone. Leaving those his goaltenders out to dry in some cases, and just hasn't been strong in the defensive zone like we know that he can be and that he's shown us in the past. So like you said, the back end has definitely been the weak part of their game. You can see the frustration early on with their top guys, Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle, and Drake Batherson, who have been putting on some clinics recently. 10 points for each of those guys early on in the season. And I mean, just that game the other day against the Colorado Avalanche, I mean, probably a game they shouldn't have been even remotely in or close to winning, but they were up by 2 goals multiple times, or at least heading into the third period, and they just choked. They absolutely choked, just like I'm choking right now throughout this episode. They choked. And those are those are points where maybe they didn't deserve to win, but if you're in that position where you're leading late in the game, you have to find a way to somehow leave with those 2 points, especially on the road or wherever it is. If you're not putting on your best performance, but you're somehow winning, you got to somehow close the deal out there. Yep. Ottawa Senators definitely need Shane Pinto back in the lineup. He's going to be out, like you said, on a week-to-week basis. But yeah, it's been a frustrating year so far for the Ottawa Senators. It's been a frustrating year for a lot of teams in the Atlantic Division, and a lot of them are at least they're 500 or above right now in the standings in the Atlantic. So it's been, there's a lot of parity going on, but yeah, it's been a frustrating season so far for the Ottawa Senators once again.
I got a couple of takes about the Sens and Pinto. We got our picks coming up. Let's get there after the break. Tap in the rest of the week. Steele and I need to do a little look under the hood. We're 3.5 weeks in or so. Don't ask Steele or I. It could be week 3. It could be week 5. But we'll hold it down, and we're going to have a little look under the hood at our fantasy teams, how they're doing. Hey, shout out to Blake. 9 leagues, 9 teams is crazy. I got 3, and those are all for money. Actually, I have 4, and I'm struggling to keep track of 4. So 9, I don't know how he's doing it, but Steele and I will have a look at some of our successes, slips, steals, and otherwise the later in the week. Steele, why don't you take us there?
Yeah, we're going to come back after the break. Big time bets later this week. We're going to break down our fantasy hockey listener leagues with everybody in the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast. Thank you so much. But first, this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. The goal is simple. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings pour in all season long. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. You can win 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. Austin Matthews, 5+ shots. Connor Hellebuyck, 30+ saves. Who knows? We're going to find out tomorrow on Tuesday. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive this bonus. It's always guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us Monday through Friday. Like I said, Flip, real quick before we get to big time bets, I think you said you wanted to talk real quickly about these Ottawa Senators a little bit more.
Just been a bad penalty killing team over the last couple of seasons. Yeah. I don't want to bring up 2 years ago, but I know last year they weren't good. This year, only getting penalties killed off at 76%, 20th in the NHL. When you're killing penalties worse than the Sabres, Blackhawks, Utah, Seattle Kraken, again, it's a small sample size. And I'm not trying to say that the penalty kill is going to be bad all year, but when you look into these numbers, it makes sense why they're not winning games on a consistent basis, especially when there's so much young talent and upside. I'm not going to get to Jake Sanderson. We'll save that for another day, Steele, when I have more energy. Shane Pinto, though, just to close this out and then to get to bets, I really like this player. And 2 things come to mind when I look at this. Number 1, who steps up? Is it going to be Ridley Gregg to do something? Because I know Adam Gaudette's not going to do it. So Ridley Gregg has a little bit of an opportunity here to perhaps carve out a niche for himself. What does it mean for their overall offense? And when I looked at his numbers himself, so those are the 2 things I'm thinking there for the overall team. A guy this year who has 1 goal and has only shot the puck 10 times on net, for how good he actually is and how wicked that shot and release is. Was he dealing with this injury for multiple games is what I was kind of looking at. And then again, I'm looking at, so you mentioned all the injuries in the crease. You mentioned some of the mishandling of perhaps other injuries in the past. I'm speculating here. I'm just saying Shane Pinto's numbers, considering how good he is, and 10 shots on net, I'm just not exactly going to, when he comes back, immediately go out there and add him if he's out there. I want to take a look. I want to assess. I want to see what this Ottawa team is doing overall, because sometimes you just go, oh, I'm going to throw that flag onto this fantasy player, and the second he comes back because he's good, I'm going to add him. That's not the case for Shane Pinto. That's just what it is. I wanted to get that off the chest. Over to you, though, for big-time bets. Where are you looking? I got 3 picks ready to ride, and you might be used to one of these. Just maybe.
Loving the picks, Flip. I'm rocking once again with the same game parlay tonight. And this was a tough decision for me, but I'm looking at that Wild Penguins game. I'm looking at that Wild Penguins game for the same game parlay, and just
Same.
follow me here, ride with me. I'm going to make this as quick as
Okay.
possible, but
Okay.
Kaprizov, anytime goal in this matchup, 3 goals, 6
Nice.
points in 5 games against the Pittsburgh Penguins. And obviously that game against the Philadelphia Flyers, so far that's been an outlier this season, 7-5 loss against those Flyers. But before that, they were absolutely dominating the opposition. They've been so great in the defensive zone, offensive zone. And again, just like an outlier for Gustafsson so far this season. But I expect them to bounce back against these Penguins who start off the season 3-6-1 in their first 10 games, which leads me to my second pick. Wild on the money line at -128 on the road. They're on a 7-game road trip right now. So something bad was bound to happen to this team. It happened against the Flyers, but they're going to bounce back. Like I said, the stats or the record against this Penguins team doesn't go in the favor of the Wild. I believe they're 2-8-0 in their last 10 games, but these are 2 different teams right now, and they're at different stages of their organization, different stages so far this season. I'm rocking with the Wild money line -128, and I'm also going with the over 5.5. I'm teasing this down to the 5.5, but going with the over. 7 of the last 10 have gone over the number. And that will be my lock of the night as well. So I'm going back-to-back same game parlays Monday, Tuesday.
I really like that, Steele. I don't usually do this a whole lot. I got an honorable mention bet, and it just slides in nicely because we were just talking about the Ottawa Senators. You're getting +120 right now for the St. Louis Blues headed into, I believe it's into Ottawa. All my tabs are freezing so badly. I don't know what's going on with this computer. It's like it was issued in 1996 on MS-DOS or something. Anyway, St. Louis Blues into Ottawa. Thank you very much. Getting now up to 125 in certain markets. They have had success against the Ottawa Senators over their last 10 games, 7 wins out of their last 9 games. I'm not feeling the energy for this Ottawa Senators club, and that's why it doesn't make the list, and I'm not just trying to throw shade at a team that I sometimes like to do that for. The St. Louis Blues, 7-3-0. I'm going to take Jake Neighbors and the boys as an honorable mention. I might throw a couple of bucks on that on the side. Let me get to the meat and spuds here, the meat and potatoes, Steele, because I'm feeling all 3 of these picks, and I think I'm back in my bag for this one. First one, let's get the obvious one out of the way. The New York Rangers are going to have their way with the Washington Capitals, okay? Shout out to the Caps. Shout out to Logan Thompson, Charlie Lindgren, Charlie Buckets. I like the moves. Ba, 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 ba. The New York Rangers are the reigning President's Trophy champions for a reason, and they've looked nasty so far this season. Even when they lose, they still get theirs. 8-2-0 in their last 10 against Washington, and that's not even just including the playoffs last year where they absolutely had their way with the Washington Capitals. First pick, Rangers on the money line. I don't care if it's a doo-doo odd. Slap this into your favorite parlay and thank me later. Right now, you're getting it not too bad. -165. I'm comfortable with it. That's pick number 1. Picks 2 and 3 are player props. And no, Sidney Crosby anytime assist is not my lock of the night. You're going to like this one, I think, even more, Mr. Roden, even though in his career, Mr. Crosby against the Wild, I'm with you on, I think, the Penguins still lose this one. But Crosby can sense that this season is already slipping away. And I don't know if you saw, Mike Sullivan's got Gino up on the wing playing with Sid now. I think that's going to mean good things, at least for their production. So I'll spit it out. Crosby anytime assist. That's pick number 2. He has 22 regular season assists in 22 regular season games in his career against the Minnesota Wild. So boom, bang, give me that one. And my lock of the night. You're not going to probably expect this one, Steele. I'm taking a look at this Montreal Canadiens group. Yeah, I said it. And they're at home to the Seattle Kraken. Number 1, I'm not buying into the Kraken this year. So let me get that out of the way. And I'll say this. Cole Caulfield last year had 314 shots on net. Through 9 games, he only has 26. Shooters shoot. And I think against the Kraken, who allow the 12th most shots against in the NHL, after a nice performance from the Canadiens the other night, I'm going to rock with Cole Caulfield. 3 or more shots. He had 4 against Philly in that victory. He had 1 and 1 the nights before. He's got to shoot that puck. He is a shooter. Say what you will about the rest of his game. He's lethal. From that down below the line there, the low half boards, lock of the night, Cole Caulfield, 3+ shots. Those are the 3 picks, and now I'm heated.
Absolutely feeling these picks for Tuesday night. Get after it with a back-to-back same game parlay. Those are the locks of the night. Those are the 3 picks from both Flip and I. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. For your second listen, make sure you check out the NHL podcast. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Flip and I appreciate all the love, all the comments we've been getting on the channel recently. Yep. We love the dialogue, the back and forth we've been getting. Once again, let us know if you agree with our takes, our picks, what's happening with your fantasy team. Let us know if you need any help with maybe some decisions, some trades, some
DMs always open
decisions. Let us know in the comments below. We appreciate it. From both Flip and I, we wish you good luck with your bets tonight, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.